Hey, are you an animator that's working in an animation studio and you're wondering how do you become a good animator that people want to work with and get on your supervisor's good side? That was my primary question when I first started working in feature animation. At the time, I was working at Sony and I was on a contract. So as I was working on my first feature, which was the Sea Beast, I was stressed because I was like, man, I don't know if I'm gonna have a job after this project. Like, what can I do to make sure that they move me on to the next project? And I had known that it depends on how well you've worked with your supervisor and the Hoka on that project and whether or not they could give you a good review and then basically give you a recommendation to move you on to the next project. And so I remember as a junior animator, I was like, oh man, I have to make an impression on everybody. I have to make an impression on the supervisor, on my lead, on the Hoka. And yeah, it was very stressful for me. And if you're in that boat and you are also on a contract, or maybe you just want to get on your supervisor's good side, this video is for you. I found some answers. I got one really great piece of advice from a mentor of mine through Sony's mentorship program, which honestly, that worked really well. I was matched up with Manu, who is an amazing animator. He's a supervisor at Sony right now, and he told me this one line that I still use to this day. I've used it at every studio that I've been at, and I think it is genuinely perhaps the only way to really make sure that you succeed in a studio environment. How do you get your supervisor to like you? How do you get your supervisor to recommend you for the next project? It's this: make your soup's job easier. That's it. Make your supervisor's job easier. In this video, I want to talk about 8 tips that you could do to make your soup's job easier, which will lead to them wanting to work with you again on the next project and on the next project and on the next project. And I promise you, this will be super useful for every single studio that you will be at. And we will start from the least important going to the most important. Number 8, last on my list, is personality. When I first started on the Sea Beast as a junior animator, I was trying to make a really good impression, and I thought, oh, maybe if I make an impression with my personality, maybe if I really make them laugh, maybe if I'm like really quirky or something like that. I don't really know how I learned that it didn't matter, but I basically learned that your personality doesn't matter as much, because when I looked at the entire team, man, there's just so many different personalities in an animation studio, and people didn't really stand out just because they were, I don't know, quirky or special or unique. They really just stood out because of the quality of their work. Like, honestly, your personality pales in comparison to just you being a good animator and you being good at your job. And so I wouldn't put any emphasis at all on trying to impress people with your personality. I would just make sure that you do your work well. And if you have a great personality, cool, awesome. But I will say that the interviewing process has already screened out like the worst personalities. And so most of the people that you're working with in a studio, they're pretty cool. Like, they're all pretty nice to work with. And it doesn't matter if they're like extroverted or introverted, or if they're quiet or loud or this or that. It actually doesn't matter as much. You know, I think what most people professionally in a studio interact with is mostly your work. Don't put that much weight into your personality being the thing that will make you stand out. The thing that will make you stand out will be other professional reasons in a studio environment. Number 7, this one is pretty specific, but I think is always a good reminder. Be prepared when you're in rounds or dailies. Be prepared for questions. Be prepared for when the director or the supervisor asks you about anything in your scene. Make sure you have those answers, because what you're trying to do basically is to limit the amount of back and forth that you're gonna have in these meetings. And if there's some sort of context that's missing from your scene that the director or the supervisor needs to know, you should know that. And that includes as well providing the materials that they might need to see. So if you have reference and the reference really informs the character performance of your animation and the director is like, oh, did you shoot reference this? Can I see it? Be prepared and have that somewhere that's readily available. If they have a question about context, about anything in your shot, make sure you know the answer. Make sure that you, like, let's say there's an asset in your shot and the director's asking questions about that, be up to date with like where that's at. Maybe the asset's missing or maybe it will be updated. Be prepared, be ready for that. And this will make your soup's job easier as well. It's going to make the director's job easier for sure when you're prepared, but for your supervisor as well, same concept. Once you get into that meeting, you want to be ready for anything that might be a stumbling block, such that the progression of your work will be a lot smoother and they don't have to do any extra work, or they don't have to be held up by these sorts of things. So be ready in rounds and dailies. It's gonna help you out a lot. Number 6, under promise and over deliver. I have been in the unfortunate situation of over promising and then being late with my delivery. And that's a situation that you should always try to avoid because it will 100% make you look bad. That's something that everybody has to learn, which is that when there's an ask of you from your supervisor or even from production, and they're like, hey Peter, can you get this thing done by tomorrow? And you should be able to gauge how long it might take you to do that. And you should always put in a buffer, like a little bit of a time buffer, because as always, some problem will always arise such that it takes longer than you think it does. And you have to always take that into account, and you don't want to promise something that you can't deliver. It just looks bad on you, and then it makes the production coordinator also look bad if they promised somebody else something, if they promised another department something, right? And you don't want to put them in that situation. Same thing when you're talking with your supervisor might be like, hey, how long would it take for you to do this thing? Can you have it by next dailies? Can you have it by end of week or something? And honestly, whatever time you think it will take for you to do it, I would add like a day. Or add a buffer, just to avoid the situation of somebody expecting something from you and you not showing up. People kind of get a little bit annoyed if that happens, and you want to be a person that keeps your word. And I think people get better and better at this because they are able to better estimate how much time it will take for them to accomplish something. So always under promise and then over deliver. Over deliver, just giving them something more than they asked for, giving them something that exceeds their expectations of the quality of the work that you're doing. I think that's always going to be a great scenario where they get way more than they asked for, and they're going to be super, super happy about that. And so, yeah, under promise, over deliver, always a good idea. So number 5, this one's kind of broad, but it will help out everything. Communicate well. Learn how to communicate well. Learn how to communicate very effectively, especially when it comes to Slack messages or emails. My philosophy about communicating with especially supervisors or even directors is that they're very busy. And so because of that, I make sure when I send them a message, I include every detail that they need to make a decision. Because usually I'm asking them something. And if it's regarding my shot or my sequence, I will always remind them like what the sequence is and what our last conversation was or what they asked of me, just because they're messaging like, 15 other people in the sequence, or even more than that, they're messaging a bunch of other people in other departments. And so usually whenever they get to your message, you just want to have to a gentle reminder like, hey, this is what we discussed last time, and this is the context of my ask, and this is basically what I have done or what I have not done. And then whatever I need from them, I always put last, because the last thing is almost always the thing that they remember the most. So this is just kind of a email/Slack tip, which is that you should always know what you're asking for and then put that at the very last thing. Do not leave any ambiguity. Don't make it so that the lead doesn't know what you're asking for. Make it very clear what you need from them and put that last. So that's just the one really quick Slack tip, email tip, because it really comes down to making their job easier, okay? It means that They don't have to do all this extra research. They have all the context they need. They don't have to go and search things up when you could easily search it up yourself and include it in the message. And then make sure that your question of what you need from them is very clear so that it takes less brain work for them to know the situation and what you need. And they're going to be able to answer you a lot quicker and a lot easier. And you want to reduce the amount of back and forth in this conversation. And you can do that upfront by being ready with all the context and knowing what you want and reminding them of what the message is about. And so this doesn't just apply to supervisors, this applies to production and production coordinators and even other departments as well. Other departments are going to message you, and same thing. Make sure that you are very clear and make sure that you're trying to limit how much work that they have to do, how much back and forth is necessary when your message is as clear as possible. So try to communicate well with those messages, those written messages, but also in dailies and rounds when you're communicating with the team. When somebody is asking something of you, what I like to do is I like to make sure that the entire room is clear and we're on the same page. And so I'll basically just try to like recap like what they're asking of me, and then I'm going to tell them what I'm going to do. All right, just so that there's no ambiguity and people aren't assuming that I'm going to do one thing when instead I'm going to do another. If it ever gets to that point in rounds or dailies where like you're unclear of what your next steps are, honestly, take that extra couple of minutes to speak up and just be like, hey, this is what I heard and this is what I'm going to do. And they'll correct you whether you're right or wrong, but it's really good for at least the note takers and the PCs to have that down in writing, but just to make sure that everybody's on the same page. So communication, super, super important. It's this little thing, but it adds up a lot and it might save you a lot of time if maybe there was a miscommunication, right? And so just to give people the opportunity to inform you of things that you might have missed as well. So try to communicate well with clarity as much as you can with everybody. Number 4, hit your notes hard. This is another piece of advice from Manu, and honestly, it's really difficult to try to do this, but it's really sound advice. He said, everybody always gets notes. Doesn't matter if you're junior or senior. And he's been in the supervisor role for a while, and he said, yeah, I'm not mad, I'm not annoyed when people get notes because I give notes and directors give notes and supervisors give notes all the time. The thing that will separate you from everybody else is being able to hit your notes on the first try. He said that some of the people who struggle and they're not easy to work with are the people who don't hit their notes on the first, second, or third try because maybe they're not going far enough or maybe they misunderstood the note. And what's happening when you're not hitting the notes is now you're increasing the back and forth, the number of meetings and dailies and rounds that's required for your shots to get through. And so that's more time that the supervisor has to need to use, and that's more time with directors, and that kind of bloats production. So this is another part of just being good at your job. And when you're good at your job, it makes your supervisor's job easier, right? They have less on their plate when you are able to do your job well and not having to communicate with them all the time and them giving you the same note over and over again. So try your hardest to hit your notes on the first try. Now, seriously, that's hard. That's very difficult. Like I try to do that, but as everyone knows, it's super difficult, but it should be something that you're aiming for, to understand the heart of the note and to go further than you think to hit the notes, and to try to hit the notes super hard on the first try. And I've noticed that some of the more senior animators, like they do this all the time, which is awesome. You know, when you're looking at their shots in dailies or rounds the first time, and then the second time they show and they hit the note perfectly. It's honestly really, really great to watch. That's just, I guess, a part of professionalism that honestly a lot of animators don't talk about, you know. So hit your notes hard on the first try. Number 3, this one's a big one. When you have a problem and you present it to your supervisor, make sure you come with a solution. So every shot is gonna have some sort of problem. Like that's just gonna be a fact for the rest of every shot that you work on. There's gonna be some problem on a sequence, on a shot, and it's unavoidable. So what do you do about it? Well, the worst thing you can do is when you encounter a problem and you don't even try any solution, and then you go to your supervisor and you're like, hey supervisor, I have a problem, can you solve it for me? What you're doing there is the opposite of making your soup's job easier. You are actually making their job a little bit harder. And the solution to this is that anytime you have a problem on a shot, attempt a solution. Attempt several solutions, try to figure it out on your own. And when you go to rounds or dailies, if you've solved the problem, then okay, great. Like, you don't really need to bring it up. But if you've solved the problem in a way that needs your supervisor's thumbs up or their approval, this is when this advice comes in handy, which is to come to rounds or dailies with a solution that you've already tried and that you're gonna show. And so what happens is, like, you will have a problem. Maybe it's a continuity thing. Maybe there's an asset that's different. Maybe there's some inconsistency in the sequence or some acting choice that you have to do differently because the director wanted a specific thing, but then, you know, it doesn't work out, so you have to try something else. That's a problem. And it's okay to have problems, but the way to approach problems is to solve them and then come into the meeting with that solution and to present it with, hey, this is the problem, but this is what I tried, so let me know what you guys think, right? So you come ready. You come ready with a solution such that you're prepared for them to make a quick decision of either approving it or changing it, but you've tried, right? Like, you've tried to do something to fix that problem. And I think the most successful animators that I know do this all the time, where they don't ask for permission. They don't wait for a supervisor to give them permission to try a solution. They just try it. They just try the solution. They're just trying to help out in the first place quicker, such that the supervisor, that's not their problem, right? It's our problem that we come to it. And the best case scenario is you have a problem, you come up with a good solution, you go into the meeting asking for a thumbs up, essentially, where the supervisor or the director, they don't even have to do anything. Like, you just kind of want to check in with them, right? You come in and you're like, hey, I had a problem, but this is my solution. I think it works. I'm just checking in with you guys. Do you think it's cool? And I would say 70 or 80% of the time that I've seen that happen, like, the director and the supervisors are like super happy with it and they give the thumbs up and it's super smooth, and then it's like, cool, approved, on to the next shot. So anytime you have a problem, come up with a solution. Don't try to pass this off onto somebody else's plate. That's your responsibility. Just take that responsibility and take the initiative to solve the problem, and then come into the meeting with the solution, and your supervisor will love you for that. That's A+. That's 100% the correct way to navigate problems, which everybody will always have. So come with solutions when you present your problems. Number 2, this one's kind of general, but it applies to almost every one of the other tips, which is don't add to your supervisor's plate. Do not add any more work to your supervisor's schedule. And there are a bunch of different ways that you could do this, but in general, if there's anything that you could do such that your supervisor doesn't have to do when it comes to your shots, you should probably take the initiative and do it. I remember there was this one instance on Moana 2. I was in the Slack chat with me, a supervisor, and a production coordinator, and the production coordinator kind of came to us, and it was already an approved shot, but there was something with an asset, and they started talking about, like, it was updated and then it was changed, and then they were kind of discussing next steps as to, like, how we could resolve the new asset thing. And then I remember the supervisor was super nice to be like, oh, okay, yeah, I can knock that out pretty quickly this afternoon, blah, 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 blah. But it was like my shots, right? But it was my supervisor who was basically, I think, trying to update all the assets in that whole sequence. And I remember I was like, oh no, dude, I'll do it. Like, let me do that. I can do that. And then I can publish it and blah, blah, blah. Like, I remember thinking very specifically, like, between the two of us, I know you're busier than me. And if we have a task that needs to be done, and if both of us could do it, and it's between you or me, dude, just let me do it. Like, let me do it. I'll take care of that so that it can free you up for you to do one of your other 99 tasks that I know that you have. And I remember the supervisor just being like, oh no, please, like, I can do it, bro. And I was like, no, like, I know you're busy. I can do it. And they're like, oh, awesome. That's amazing. Thank you so much. And they were super grateful for it. And it was my shot, by the way. Like, I was like, no, this is on my plate. Like, and I don't want to pass this off onto you. And I remember them being very, very, very grateful for that. So just in general, don't add to your soup's plates. I think they're going to be very happy about that. If you can do something, do it, you know, for like the sake of the team, basically. It's basically looking for areas that you can serve the entire sequence or the team. And if you can do it rather than your lead, that would be best, I think. Which leads me to number one. The number one thing that you can do to make your soup like you is be a good animator. It sounds super simple, and I even hate that that's the number one thing, but it's super, super true. Because if you are a really good animator, you will make your soup's job easier, because basically they don't really have to do much with your shots. They don't have to spend time giving you all these notes when your animation's perfect already. They don't have to do all this back and forth with you and notes and your shot progression. They don't have to, hold your hand through anything. Like, you are just a good animator, and you get your shots approved very quickly, such that basically your supervisor doesn't have to do much. And I think that's the best case scenario, which is for you to just be such an amazing animator that you are actively reducing what your supervisor has to do with work pertaining to your shots. And I've just seen this to be the case everywhere, at Sony, at DNEG, at Disney. The best animators, and you can see it on screen, the best animators are the ones that people love the most. Why? It's because when you're crazy good at animation, you get your shots done quicker, you entertain people, and you put really good ideas into the shots such that the shots go seriously super quick, and it requires less work from everybody involved. It requires less work from the director giving notes. It requires less work with supervisors giving notes, and you breeze through these shots, and these people are beloved. Like, seriously, the best way to get your supervisor, your director, and basically everybody else in the studio to like you is to be crazy good at animation. Now, easier said than done, right? Like, that's super hard, and for most average people, it might take a while for you to get to that level, but it's just very, very true in the respect of when you're good at animation, you don't put any more work on anybody else. And it makes your soup's job easier. It makes your PC's job easier. It makes the director's job easier when you are really good with choices. You're really good at the execution of animation. And I think everybody's just really happy when they see somebody who's just really good at their job. So that's the number one tip to get your soup to like you. Just be good at animation. And that's it. That's my 8 tips to help you succeed in a studio environment. This is mostly about you working as a true animation professional. And I think it all comes down to just being good at your job. Not just being a good animator, even though that's super important, but just being good at every other aspect of your job. And when you do that, your supervisor will like you, your PCs will like you, production will like you, directors will like you, and it will help you in your career, like everywhere, if you're able to be that type of professional. And it will make your soup like you, and it will greatly increase your chances to get on the next project and the next project and the next project, because everybody would want to work with you. So I hope that helps. Here it is again, the 8 tips that I have for you to succeed as an animator in a studio. Number 1, be a really good animator, or at least try to be. Number 2, don't add to your soup's plate. Number 3, present solutions when you have a problem. Number 4, when you get notes, hit them on the first try. Number 5, communicate well. Number 6, under-promise, over-deliver. Number 7, be prepared in rounds and dailies. And number 8, personality, be yourself. These 8 things will help you, I guarantee it. I've seen this time and time again in a bunch of studios that I've worked in, including Sony and DNEG and Method and Disney. And at the end of the day, people just want to work with really good animators that have good personalities and that they are easy to work with. And that's it. So I hope this helps. That's the video. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Hey, if you like that video, I've got 2 more here. This one's about how to interview for animation studios specifically. And I've got another one here about the demo reel that got me my first feature job ever. So click on one of those if you want to hear more about animation industry stuff.